I'd always wanted to ride a motorbike. It's not until more recently that I was able to do my motorbike licence and get a bike. I went down to Harwich Harbour. I felt on top of the world because I was doing something I'd wanted to do for such a long time. It was the best day and the worst day all at once. I was riding back, I was only doing 40 miles an hour. As I was going around this left-hand bend, hit a grass verge that just was enough to launch me into the air, and I cartwheeled with the bike. The next thing I remember is waking up with a crowd of people around me on my back in the field.
Thankfully, we don't go to that many spinal cord injuries, but in my experience, when I have attended those cases, the patient knows, they know that this is going to be a life-changing incident, and this was very much the case with Claire's accident. I recall the people from the air ambulance being there. I remember telling them that I couldn't feel my legs, and at that point I knew that the injury was bad. I just knew. I remember being carried through the field and being put into the air ambulance, where there were several crew who were helping to keep me calm and stable. We can't change the fact that the accident has happened, we can't change the initial injury, but what we can do is we can then stop that injury progressing and hopefully limit the damage that can occur later on. But probably the biggest decision that the team made for Claire was to transport her to Addenbrooke's Hospital, which is a major trauma centre.
I sustained a severed spinal cord, several fractured vertebrae. I had 7 broken ribs and a fractured shoulder. I spent the first 4 days just being stabilised prior to having my spine fixed with metal rods. You know, I will never walk again. So now I am getting used to life in a wheelchair. I'm permanently paralysed. Luke has given up work so that he can care for me. Luke and I are both photographers. I've been unable to hold the weight of a camera, so I've been unable to use my camera, but actually the front wheel attachment means I've got a bit of extra stability, so I can now do that as well. Just going to try and move forward as best as we can. As Luke and I had only been together for 6 months at that point, I felt it was the right thing to do to say to Luke, you don't have to be here. And I kind of gave him that permission to go if he wanted to, because this is my injury. But he decided to stay instead. And then a few weeks later, when we were in hospital, Luke proposed. The air ambulance made a massive difference to my recovery because they were able to make a decision about which hospital I was to attend. Had my injury been a centimetre higher up my spine, then my injuries would have been much different. I may not have use of my arms, I may not have had the muscles needed to be able to swallow or to breathe properly. And so that 20-minute ride in a helicopter compared to an hour and a half drive, that made a massive difference to me. Yeah.
So the Essex and Herts Air Ambulance is a charity funded by charitable donations of the extremely generous people of Essex and Hertfordshire. So the importance of support could be the difference between life and death, and in Claire's case very much could be the difference between having use of her upper limbs or not.
You never know when you might need them. You know, life happens, things happen to different people all the time. The air ambulance mean a lot to me. It is the difference between me being able to use my arms or not being able to use my arms potentially. Made a huge difference to my life.